first encounter was like 3 years ago when I was doing the book, The Age of
the legendary book,
Data.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the same stuff we are talking today, but we did not see this AI thing coming, I think.
I did. I knew
You
it was
did?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were working on an AI character.
I didn't know it was going to come out for real, but I was pretending it was there.
So we were talking about different AI characters in movies, and then I think it was like 22, I had the first contact with AI-generated images, and so this was kind of remembered me of this old narrative from the Golem.
Yeah.
So we stumbled upon this idea when we were preparing our talk, and someone said the Golem took place under the Emblem Hotel. So what?
We're dreaming about the Golem. Yeah.
And so it was like a long story short. So we have here this installation about the Golem. It happened in the 16th century when the Jewish community in Prague was suffering on repressions and stuff. And this Jewish rabbi, Judah Löw, came along and had the idea, wow, let's create this creature to protect our community. But in the end, he was not able to control. So this creature turned against its own community, so he had to stop it again. And this reminded me from its perception of like a work of a chatbot. So the Golem was like made from clay, and he put a medallion on him for the power and like to kickstart him perhaps. And he wrote like in ChatGPT on his brain, Emet, which means truth. And when this guy freaked out, he just simply erased the E. So he changed the algorithm to dead, and then it stopped again.
You're in charge now.
Can we have sound, please? But we have visuals.
I can't remember what the sound's like on this one.
Mystic sounds.
Yeah. None of this is part of the plan. Keep going.
Yeah,
we've got
so
50 minutes. We chewed through half an hour earlier.
And the same motive is in Hell, Space Odyssey, 50 years later.
Great. So we're talking about AI that wants to kill Dave. That sounds brilliant.
So we look at this example
Keep
here.
Going. Clicker.
I can't do this, Dave. He says, open the door, Hell. I can't do this, Dave. So he does not open the door because Hell sees his mission being corrupted by the humans, and he does everything to save the mission. But what was the target of the mission actually? To go to Mars? I don't know.
Well, it was to discover the black column thing, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah, so this was 2001. And then we have, I stumbled upon a Czech-born philosopher called, I tell you, Willem Flusser.
Yeah.
And he said, to be creative means to let something come into being that did not exist before, and that is not entirely under our control.
So like AI then?
Or Hell, yeah, AI. So to say. So Flusser also says that he's also talking very much about design, and he sees design as an expansion of the human body also, like a tool set, like AI.
Yeah.
So, and this leads us to the first territory work in our
I see what you did
presentation.
There. Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think you can make a little introduction to this.
So What am I talking about? Oh, yes. So we all suspect that artificial intelligence is evil, right? And this is what we play on in Hollywood. We're wanting to create tension, and we've been doing it for years. And we all suspect that the thing behind the eye, behind Hal, is doing something to supersede us. I think if there is any intelligent life, then it probably already has. But our kind of job with Ex-Machina was working with Alex Garland, and we had two key jobs really: building in the narrative logic around what it would be like to create a physical embodiment, an AI robotic figure, and build in as much logic and depth to that as possible, so the audience bought into it. So we had ooh no, I'm skipping ahead. And then we also created the interface and the data that went with that, so the inbuilt logic. And the beauty of working on films is you get to work with really quite amazing people. So we had a number of code consultants, and kind of at the time, this was probably about 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, people that were hypothesizing on where artificial intelligence and machine learning was going. And we had some really wonderful people that kind of inputted into the design and the format of the code. And then Alex was really keen on having little Easter eggs in there, so that if you compiled the code when you went back home, if you paused the DVD, you could see, it would point you in lots of different directions, further reading, and it was amazing how quickly the fans discovered those little Easter eggs in the movie.
But let's look at the character of Ava here as an AI striving for freedom, self-chosen.
What do you mean?
In a bit. So
all right, we'll get to that.
I think she, in the end, somehow kills someone, her creator.
They might not have seen it.
Yep.
Don't spoil it for them.
Yeah. And we can't hear it either.
No.
So next.
So then we go. Now we go on to Ghost in the Shell. So this was a really interesting movie for us to work on at Territory, because massive Masamune Shirow fan, loved the original manga and anime, and so we wanted to really do the technology, the kind of cyberpunkness of it all justice. What's beautiful about Ghost in the Shell? It's really what we're all going through now, which is okay. If the machines are surpassing us in some way, what space does that leave for us? And I think we're all asking that question in kind of our creative endeavors in using these tools now. So, okay, well, if this thing does these things so well, where do I add something? And the beauty of Ghost in the Shell, it's really about the Major who transfers her intelligence into a robotic body. So there's still the sense of a human there. And then there's a creation of an artificial intelligence through the net that kind of poses that question. And it's that tension between the synthetic and the human, and that mirroring back that makes the AI intelligence so interesting. And I think that's what we look at now, right?
Click. We have a show.
Keep click. All right. Okay.
Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
Cells.
Interlinked.
Interlinked.
What's it like to hold the hand of someone you love? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Do they teach you how to feel finger to finger? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Do you long for having your heart interlinked? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Do you dream about being interlinked?
Interlinked.
What's it like to hold your child in your arms? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Do you feel that there's a part of you that's missing? Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Within cells, interlinked.
Within cells interlinked.
Why don't you say that 3 times? Within cells, interlinked.
Within cells interlinked. Within cells interlinked. Within cells interlinked.
I want to ask you some questions.
unknown serial number.
That's gonna be tough.
Okay.
Yeah. So this says, why is it that something that was created with a good positive intent turns out to be potentially harmful and against its creator? So we have these 4 examples we have seen, like hell as a dominating entity. Then we have Ghost in the Shell, like some kind of hybrid.
Yeah.
And then we have long discussed how to interpret Blade Runner, because it may be that Kay is like a child of Rachel, and
I'm not allowed to confirm that.
no
You know
confirm.
that, don't
So,
you?
but
Because
it
Ridley
could
might
be,
disagree, but
could
Denis
be,
might agree.
It could be. So we have a replication in the AI. So this means like 4 different pillars. So the domination, the cyborg merging, the self-conscious striving, like we also see in, for example, what did we say today, Westworld?
Yeah.
And number 2 could be
Well, that's really Ghost in the Shell, isn't it?
Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah.
yes. And the last one is post-humanism, so the creation surpassing its creator motive can be like Blade Runner or not.
Yeah.
So, and in this little display we can see the creator likes, so like in the Golem also, he wants to create some kind of doppelganger, which is a true self, so a replication of his own body and soul, or not, because he can also, like in Ex-Machina, create something which represents a suppressed part of his self. And then you can define it as an extension or then as a slave, and if we turn this then around, so if the creation gains self-consciousness, autonomy, rebellion, then the creator might be the slave when it's surpassing its creator. So we hope that generative AI does not come this far.
I think it's already taken over. It's playing around with our sound.
Another quote here I found was Paul Virilio from French. If you invent the ship, you also invent shipwreck. If you invent the aeroplane, you also invent the plane crash. So this is, I think, I can't see the next slide, so I suppose this will be the entity for Mission Impossible 7.
Okay.
Should we try?
Fantastic. Let's go see what happens.
Yes.
So, sorry if you haven't seen Mission Impossible. It's got an evil AI in it, and there's going to be another film as well, shock horror. We were designing the graphics with Chris McQuarrie. He knew that this idea that data and technology is getting away from us. We feel a lack of control, even though we're building it, and it feels like we're at this nexus point at the moment where the technology almost feels magical. It almost feels beyond our kind of tangible touch, and with that comes suspicion and anxiety, and really what you're trying to do with a movie is create that dramatic tension, between, in this case, I guess, good and evil. But in the case of HAL, is it evil or is it just fulfilling its programming? So we were playing around with lots of design themes here, and a lot of it was seeing through the data and then manipulating and distorting that data in an interesting way that kind of communicated a couple of different layers to the audience over the moments and the glimpses that you see it in a film. And so with any character in a movie, you want it to evolve over time. So there's little details that we play out in there to kind of suggest how that character arc is evolving. And we also had a mind to, or at least Chris McQuarrie, the director, had a mind to where that might be going in the next movie. That's always in our minds, is how do you how do you kind of bring people on a journey, take them with you? It's really hard with data. You know, people see it as quite, and a tricky thing often with sci-fi movies and data that you see on screens is it's bloody blue. Like everyone wants blue data in screens, so whenever possible we try and shift the palettes around. You know, there's a great talk earlier from Found about emotion, and we're always thinking about, I guess, semiotics really, like what color communicates to people, what movement color communicates to people, and with the entity in this movie, it's going to be a much bigger part of the next film, and yeah, I mean that quote is absolutely perfect. We want that destruction, we want that drama, we want that sense of jeopardy. That's what movie making needs. It's not necessarily what the real world needs, but it's what we're reflecting back. And it's kind of a big part of how technology and data sit. It becomes a statement in the movie. Even if it's sci-fi, even if it's in the future, we're normally making a comment about what's happening now rather than what we think might happen. And it's a fascinating mechanism to play with. So this continues on really our data stories into how did AI affect you personally over the last year, Christoph?
This is a good question. So we had a discussion last year at Mouvo when we had this workshop with Vital Auto and Formlabs trying to prompt to 3D print already last March, I think. So this was very ambitious, worked out somehow. And at this moment, I was principal creative art at Jung von Matt. And in April, I think, I used for the first time AI to create visualizations for pitch presentations. And this was like blowing me away because I saved like 10 days. So I generated an output of visuals within half of the time. And this lead then to, this slide is also interesting. So this shows the amount of applications being put onto the market every now and then. And so you have to know, to have a plan what applications to use and which applications you can bundle, as we also will say in the interview later, that we can also combine analog and digital and different workflows, and you always have to make up your mind what the outcome has to be, relying to the concept to curate your workflow, so to say. And this then was the first use of an AI image generating model in a global car launch for Hyundai Santa Fe last August. So this was done with Stable Diffusion, and AI image generation is always relying on historical data. So I've made a test on Midjourney, and the latest vehicles it can reproduce is like 2.5 years old. So if you now come along and say, display the new Santa Fe on a candy mountain, there you go. And so we had to train our own model on Stable Diffusion, and this was then the outcome.
In November 2023, Hyundai stirred up the Reddit AI Geeks community, leaving its members in disbelief.
The cars are real photos with transparent backgrounds.
They are clearly photoshopped in afterwards.
It is not AI.
But let's start from the beginning. For the global launch of the new Hyundai Santa Fe, we highlighted the car's biggest feature, its expansive tailgate. Its spaciousness is a gateway that opens your imagination. Hyundai presents Open for More. Open for adventure, open for love, open for dreams, curiosity, action, fun, beauty, comfort, inspiration, connections, emotions, chai, exploring, inspiration. We created a campaign so open that it's created by everyone. We tapped into the most discussed technology of our time.
AI.
However, no matter how advanced, AI technology relies on old data. If the Gen AI is not up to date, there is nothing that we can do. Can we change this? Absolutely. By training our very own AI, a brand AI tailored on the new Hyundai Santa Fe, sustainably trained, with 19,800 unique steps on stables. For cars entirely imagined by the AI without any 3D. The first results were not promising at all. But through relentless training, we ultimately achieved success as our AI improved and delivered the desired results. For the very first time, we created a brand AI that works in your browser, on your Instagram, with free prompting, and with an assistive mode. That brings you to your dream destination. Eight times more Hyundai images were generated compared to Mid-Journey. 25% of the creations were downloaded or shared. 6.2% conversion to the product page. A campaign created by AI. Imagined by everyone.
Yes, so this was as the story goes. Yeah, I just want to show you how we work in the visualization process. So this has increased quite massive, as you can imagine. If you have a pitch presentation for some fashion brand, you can create these images with a 2-line of prompts, and then make subtle variants.
But how much have you edited these afterwards? Is that
nothing
at all?
Nothing. This perhaps was run through Magnific, because we fell in love with Magnific AI. Yeah, because it makes more noise into the
so it feels
details.
more photographic.
Yeah. So this is a very good tool for post. And as Flusser said, the handle is a simple machine, so it goes about product design. Its design follows the human arm, and therefore I think it's like we talked today. So designing or painting has always been a huge part of our process, personality, whatever. And I think this is a new tool I like a lot to just play around, because it's on your cell phone, so you can generate Mid-Journey images whenever you want. And this was a process I came along with mixing models and animals. For example, you have seen here the octopus, zebra, the mantis. And then what I find interesting is if you challenge these language models, so this is also a thing we will say in the interview later, if you challenge the boundaries of the existing or available tools, then you can...
How do you do that? How do you challenge it?
This is a language model, and I tried to challenge it with an abstract use of language. So I go back to Carl Schwitter and use a Dadaistic nonsense word which expresses mostly sound. So Zwirbar Blurgelump, and the machine interprets it as this beautiful helmet. And the next step would be to leave the semantic layer completely behind and define the token of the helmet as an emoji. So this is also something to...
A new cultural high point.
2,000 years.
2,000 years of evolution.
Here we are. What I also want to show you is the first encounter I had with AI was in the field of NFTs.
Yeah.
With Mario Klingemann, aka Quasimondo. He says words behave like pixels and sentences like pictures. And these are very early, I think, DALL-E 3 images from 22 something.
Amazing.
And
So
I
you
like.
still doing NFTs? You still doing those?
No, I think I even forgot my password for OpenSea. I don't have no idea. So this is long ago. I think this was during the pandemic. So they were doing some NFTs because you had nothing else to do. And what I like here is this artistic expression you do not see anymore in these hyper-realistic results you get with Midjourney 6. And this also reminds me of Magritte, where he says this is not a pipe, and this is just the image of a pipe. So you do not have the object, whether in the symbol nor in the text. And I wanted to challenge this for a project when I tried to prompt organic surfaces with generative AI, because in this context, the resemblance of a meat never existed. So it's just 10,000 images of meat being stretched into pattern and numbers and then rearranged. And I like this rough outcome. The technique I used was a very early version of Midjourney with the latest version of Runway. And the outcome then was a trailer for Jung von Matt, Volcano.
So it's really interesting because so much of creativity is an interpretation of an idea, isn't it? That's what you're talking about, is that your kind of creative sparring partner is now becoming a system, and you're kind of feeding it creative direction, and then it's interpreting it in different ways, and you're kind of pulling through those references and playing it back.
And you can describe it, and as Joshua Davis also did already in the generative art, so you generate like a massive amount of images for one prompt, and then you are the curator of your own work, so to say. So then you curate the images, and this is also like a parallel in our ECD. Tim Wagner recently had a lecture, and he said if you go after a photo shooting for BMW, for example, if you go through these contact sheets and you scan the little images, and then you got stuck at the image which transports this magic, this is the one. And I think this is, in a way the same, but yeah.
Do you feel like it gives you the answers before you know what the question is? See, this is sometimes my concern with it, is that it gets there too quickly, and I don't get the time to lose myself. You know, we were talking earlier about painting and drawing, and when you're working with those materials, when you're far more analog, it gives your mind time to wander, or is it you're accessing a different part of your brain when you're doing this? It's kind of asking a different question of you. It's kind of a different iteration.
It's a different process, because if you paint and draw, you're always adding something, and if you go for non-semantic experimental prompting, then you start with, for example, a prompt, and then you iterate it, and when the outcome for this playfulness is not correct, then you add techniques like blending, mixing, whatever, and then you go into the field of randomness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not under control or not controllable.
Yeah.
And this is also what I heard today in some lecture, that you might increase the quantity of the output, but I think the most important thing is to increase the quality of the output. So I think this is still a longer way to go. We should have. This is some background.
Talking
mood
points.
talking.
This is a really special project to me. It was probably the last project I actually hands-on designed. So our first project at Territory, film project, was Prometheus, and I think it's kind of, you know, thinking about them moving on to Blade Runner and things like that. This Ridley really loved the idea of a lot of projection, a lot of analog technology still coming through. So there's moments where Charlize Theron's character stood up in front of big glass plates, and we would project. Now, normally with actors and actresses, you don't want to obscure their face too much, but Ridley doesn't mind. He's all about that kind of authentic analog layering with technology, and that kind of ties into the whole alien world. You know, the technology gets layers of interpretation, which I think is what we're talking about here. Steven Spielberg on Ready Player One was all about the personalization of technology. So, okay, fine, AI is coming through and it can give you this perfect layer. But actually humans want to put their own personality back into it. So each heads-up display for each character is almost like social media. It's this moment to be expressive in a digital world and bring the humanity back in. And that's you know, the kind of the idea of expanding the human experience through digital layers, through digital means, bringing it back into the analog world, whether that's now AR. I'm a big advocate of holograms. It's this meeting place of analog, human, digital. That's, for me, where I get really excited. And some of the things that you're doing with generative, but then seeding it back into the real world and getting human layers pushed back into that kind of reconnection is really exciting.
Yeah. Question is, how do you estimate the current and future impact of AI? I found this soundtrack, which is quite nice, in a podcast recently, and it's called Experts in a Dying Field.
Does it feel to be an expert in a dying field? And how do you know it's over when you can't let go?
Yeah. Dancing on our grave. Should we talk about this? This was for.
I didn't make this. So this is we had the pleasure of working on Secret Invasion. This is not our work, but I think it's just a really interesting to see that even big studios like Marvel are experimenting with using generative, especially with something. So Secret Invasion, I won't spoil it for you, but it's got shapeshifters in. It's got an alien race that can kind of transmorph into different looking beings. And so the idea of the series kind of nicely flows into the use of AI and generative, because it's constantly evolving and morphing imagery that's quite organic and alive.
And the use of this early, also stable diffusion, frame interpolation, transports it very well. So, and what I also want to present today is a premiere. Yeah. So I received from Nicolas Neubert the latest demo from Runway.
Yeah.
And we have a watch now.
Beautiful.
I think he has the credits when working at Runway.
Yeah.
So, and I think Runway has done a very important step here from going to only chat-based interface with the motion brush technique to the next level, what we can see here. So you have prompted images from Midjourney, and then you can, with 5 different brushes, define which areas, like in a coordinate system, X, Y, Z, make movements. Yeah, we have seen this today as more than once, I think. So nobody knows what Sora is all about, but everybody's excited. Then that leads us to the next one. It's why is authentic authorship crucial in the age of Gen AI? So I made a research, and you have, I call it synthetic influencers. So these synthetic influencers are completely AI generated. So you have Lil Miquela. I think she appeared already in 2019 something.
Yeah, she's been around for a while now, so but becoming more and more sophisticated.
So she had like 2.6 million followers, and this BMW campaign by Media Monks in January this year, I think, works a lot with face swap and AI. And on the right you see Aitana Lopez, who has different qualities, which leads to 300k followers.
Wow.
And here you go into a segment where I don't know how many of these 300k followers know that this person is not real.
That's interesting. Would they mind if they found out?
No, I don't think so. Would they? What do you think?
Does the AI mind if they get less followers?
I think here we are again when you create the quantity. So if you generate AI images like 100 at the moment and flood, what's it called? This tsunami of crap.
Right.
And then I think you automatically can create these followers. But the question is where is it necessary to make a hint for the consumer or the user in the end that he is not in the thinking he's going to be betrayed. So if you, for example, this campaign where you have these synthetic influencers and then you lose potential clients by losing trust into the brand. So I think this is also a very dangerous field. So you have to make the influencer obviously AI generated, or you need to label it somehow.
Yeah, but are we a generation that cares? Do the next generation, maybe they don't mind? Maybe they don't mind because they're growing up with that. Is that is that our own problem? What I love is that it's like AI is currently asking us all the right questions. What's important about self-authorship? Is it important to us that we know the stories behind? I suspect this audience thinks that it is, because they want to know the stories behind creation. They want to know the stories behind the people that are making the work. And I think there's a large audience out there that's an important factor. It doesn't mean that there's not a space for AI and generative. Generative's been around before AI. Yes. We've been using Houdini and procedural tools for many years. But I think it heightens our intent with the ideas that we create and the way that we create them. In the right sort of way. In the same way that when fine artists were representing reality and photography came in, no longer did we need to recreate reality, so it freed up artists to start doing things like impressionism, abstraction, postmodernism. It kind of created this, burst of creativity. And I'm wondering if that is a similar point now with the space that AI is kind of moving into. It creates a new space for us to create in a more handcrafted way.
Like a counter movement. So like we said, recently, when we use Magnific to upscale the AI images, we have to go into Lightroom to make them not that hyper-realistic because they are too realistic, and this perhaps leads then in the next step to a fatigue of the AI. So everybody wants to see a handcrafted original work, which AI actually can't do because it can only reproduce on certain pattern, identified pattern.
And it's based on, as to your point earlier, it's what's gone before.
Yeah.
So we are driven to find the new. We're driven to find the spaces that haven't been covered.
So you can only remix what has been done already.
We should go to questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some. So let's jump right to them. Let's do those two. And as we have more
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you spoke about AI a lot, and have you tried it or used it in, like, in the films already? Or, yeah, this is my question.
Powering things behind the scenes, and we definitely have used it conceptually to try out different things quickly, almost, you know, as I suspect a lot of people have here through mood boarding and things like that. We haven't taken it through to final production yet because we still need a certain level of control. And you need all the layers to go out to comp in Nuke. There's just so much refinement that goes on when you're having a conversation with a film director around just the little nuances and details. It would take 10 times longer to give you that level of control in a very specific way. So we haven't gone there yet. It's not to say that it won't happen in the future. And I think what we're doing is actually just doing a lot of R&D around how you just hack the system, how you integrate lots of different tools, layer them up, pull in manual controls over the top, and how that might work with film productions. But I would say film studios are a little bit hesitant at the moment because of the whole IP question. And I'm no lawyer, so I'll leave that with them. But yeah, we're definitely excited by it. New technologies should push you as creatives. Creates new canvases, right? Where we are seeing it, not in feature films, but in computer games and live experiences where an AI can maybe power a game engine to create a character or have a conversation with a character, that becomes really powerful. So less so in the feature film world, but a lot of our other projects, we're definitely using it.
And do directors care about that, or like, do they interested to playing with this type of technologies?
Or they don't personally, care? Or you should probably.
No, the directors of the movies. I mean.
Oh, directors love it because it gives them something to comment on. So you know, and that's what I was saying earlier. So a lot of film directors, they want to have a point about something. If you're investing 2 to 3 years of your life, you have to have a really good reason why you're making that film. Like, what is your point of view? And I know, you know, you might watch some Hollywood films and just think, oh my God, you know, it's just another big blockbuster. But genuinely, a lot of film directors care about the message that's ultimately trying to come through in the film. And so AI and our relationship to technology is just a wonderful lens on that. You know, it really draws attention to the overall human experience and what we add to the world. You know, if we create something that evolves past us to the point of Ghost in the Shell or HAL or, you know, all of these filmic references, there are some really big questions of us. So I think film directors are very much interested in it as a thematic narrative device. But I haven't seen them using it as a tool, personally. But I think they're really interested by it because technology, you know, it shifts creative attitudes.
Thank you.
Just think of this famous Coke commercial from Scofield.
Yeah.
So it looks like AI generated, but in the end, I think one texture of the ship, of the sea from the ship was AI generated. The rest was animation.
Yeah.
So this is. Yeah, because it's not controllable. So this is the same what we do when we have like storyboards for advertising. So you prompt a basic storyboard, and then you refine it still in Photoshop.
All right, and then that was the second question. So go ahead.
Hello. I was wondering about, you mentioned that you do a lot of analog work where you're kind of doing stuff on paper and such before you make it digital for all of your visuals and such. With the sheer amount of like softwares available, how do you kind of pick and choose what you're going to use and combine to create those visuals?
So what we learned through working on Blade Runner is the tools change the process completely. If you step away from the computer for a moment, your relationship with your ideas completely changes. But as soon as it's pencil and paper, you're freer again. You're not thinking about how am I going to achieve this in Photoshop or Illustrator. You're just thinking about the overall composition, the overall message that's going to be coming through. And so we'll go to analog tool sets at the very beginning. What I really like is how do you make all of your designers creative directors? And the way that you do that is you think at the start of the day, I'm at point A. Where do I want to be by the end of the day? And that's how all film directors think. They just think, I'm taking this massive team on a journey. We're starting here with a script, and then in 2 years' time, they'll have all helped me get to this point where we're releasing a film at a cinema. And it's a massive journey. So you have to be very intentional with your creative ideas, and you need to be really intentional with the way that you convey that to your teams. So actually starting analog, starting with sketches, gives you a very quick shorthand to say to yourself at the start of your day, okay, I'm here, it's a blank piece of paper. By the end of the day, where do I want to be? And for a motion designer, I think that's key. So you just spend half an hour with a sketchbook thinking about where you want to travel, where you want to be, and then you step into the tools and you think about. But as a studio, we're across everything. We've got pretty much every software package you could imagine, Houdini, After Effects, Substance, just all of them. And then we figure out the right team dynamics, the right team structure to realize the best ideas. So we don't want tools getting in the way. We want the best idea to come first and then figure out how to get there.
All right. I think I'd suggest to stick with that as a last idea of the talk. So thank you very much for the talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just about in 10 minutes, we're going to have performance of Niva and then after party with DJs. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, all the speakers, organizers, and partners to making this happen. And see you during the after party and see you definitely next year as well for a 10th edition. It's going to be a nice anniversary. Have a good time.